Hello and welcome to episode 29 of building a 2D game in Flutter, which supports multiplayer. Here we can see the homepage that we have so far for this game. And in the last episode, we kind of painted ourselves in the corner, at least I did, trying to figure out the API, realized that we will have multiple games, right? And each of them will have a game loop. And basically, the game states, the update game states, they will be particular to the game loop, and basically figured out that okay, well, if I make this call, this string call here, and I get a stream of playing client events, I don't know yet what stream to return for the game states because I don't know what game the client is playing in. Right, that information is hidden in this property here. Playing client event. It's better to see over here. Playing client, right? We have the game ID and the client ID. So, but I don't want to basically wait for key presses from the client, nor do I want to basically have the stream kind of be connected to this, kind of have a map, right? We don't want to do that because that would mean we would only get, we would basically have to take an input to then push a game set. We want them to be kind of independent. So the better way that we can do this is we started working on this. If we get a playing client event, except that actually when we play, we give it back a playing client, right? So the client requests to play. At that point, basically what we're doing is we're creating a playing client, assign a game ID, and basically we create a game, or maybe we'll already have a game and we add that client to the game. Basically, then we tell the client you are in this game and this is your player, right? The client ID tells us what the player will be. We add it to the game, and then basically we return this. So now the client knows what game I'm in, what player am I. But now in order, when the client then wants to subscribe to the game states, it needs to basically at least tell us what game it's in. So what this will actually be will be a playing client. So we have the client here, and then we'll basically return the game state stream, the game state event stream, which will basically come from this loop. So we take the game states off the game that the client is playing in. So basically, first of all, we get the game of the client.game ID. And for now, we assert that this game exists. All right, and then what we'll do, we return game.GameState, but we'll map it. Now we basically need to map it to a game state event. So we have the game state, and now what do we need to do to map it, right? So we have the game state, and we need to create a game state event. So now let's see what that has. And we would better look over here. Game state event has a packed game state for now, and we said that maybe eventually we'll add an ID to each event and a timestamp. But for now, we are okay with just putting basically the packed game state in there. So we'll say that game state equals the game state dot pack. Now let's see. So that looks good. So basically now we're converting the game states that we're getting from our game loop or our game to game state events. Right? So that works nicely. And then we still need on playing client. So I'm wondering why we still probably didn't rerun the regenerate script yet. should get errors. Okay. Message bus, we have an error somewhere. On line 7. Okay. Now, now we should, yeah, now we're getting what we need to be getting. So this will be the one where the client sends us stuff. And now we don't need the sync one anymore. Why is it not reformatting? Now we have some weird error here probably. Okay. So now we have on-playing client event. That's perfect. So it's going to be an event stream. I mean, it's kind of weird. We named it. I don't want to name it that. What if you call it this? If you call it actually, well, we can't do that. Okay. Let's call it a sync. Is that a sync? No. Let's call it sync because you're syncing. All right. So, so that should now be playing client sync. Right. Now, if you regenerate, that should basically, yeah. Okay. Playing client sync. Let's name it that for now. And you can see how easy it is to rename, right? It's only that you have to rename in 2 places. But now we can say event dot listen, and then we say process why is this not working? Process, it should be, yeah. Right? So we're processing this, and basically what we have to do here is we have to tell the game that we have to tell it that the player had some input, right? Okay, so the playing client sync, that's that, and then basically we need to return something. That's really weird. It wants something back. Maybe later on that can be something, some indicator that yes, we got your stream. And we want to make it a stream because we want this to be fast. We could also make this a method call where every time the client has something to say to us, it calls a method, but we don't want the overhead. We want to make it a stream, even though it's not bidirectional. But in a way, we have a bidirectional stream, right? Because this is streaming out, and then this is streaming in. It's just we had to do it this way because we need to find the game first to be able to know which stream we should be giving back. So now the client can subscribe to game states. And then basically, now in the game, we just have to make something happen in the game loop, and then we should already get some values. But let's fix our errors first. Okay, so that would be start. So we actually here we need to implement some ticks. So as you can see, we're doing a lot of things all at the same time, and that might be also why we're running into all these problems. So we have a method called schedule tick, and we're going to for now put a constant here to say tick duration or something like that. And so for now we're going to make that 2000, and then we'll have the tick, and I'm actually going to copy that. So in our players, so that's obviously like we don't worry about this yet. We schedule another tick and we send the game state, but the game state, so basically here in this tick, right? We need to run the controllers, right? So then basically the controllers then will give us a new game state, right? And then so basically, right? We need to reassign the game state with a new one after running the controllers. And then basically we push those into our stream. So the game state stream dot add our current game state. And then we schedule the next tick. Right? And if we have enough players, we'll start scheduling the first tick and return true, meaning we were able to start the game. Okay? And so let's actually do something we need to do something here to indicate that something's actually happening, right? So in the game state, we need to change something. So what we could do, well, we probably need to make the players public. Let's make it public for now. And so then what we can do, we can just say we just increase the angle just to see something happening, right? So that should be enough to see that we're actually running our game loop, that actually things are changing. Obviously, the controllers will then do something that makes sense. This doesn't make any sense, but the controllers will do something that makes sense. And so now we send this back to the client. So basically, we are listening to process. Sorry, this is the wrong one. This one. We're listening to game states, right? And the game states, if we follow this through, comes from the game, which comes from the game loop, which basically is exactly this game state where we're pushing in the new game state every 2000 seconds, right? So what I'll do now is I'll go back to the client. Not that one. I think the client itself. So in here in main, we get request to play. And then we will say game state stream is basically the client dot subscribe. Why is there no subscribe yet? It should be something subscribe game states. Oh, well. Yeah, we need to actually add that. So let's go to the server and kind of with the service and kind of get that from here. So we have subscribe game states, right? And So actually what I want to do is I don't want this guy to have to keep track of this. I want this to be in here. Right? And now we can basically just say request to play. Request to play. And actually we want this to be really easy, right? Like why would we outside of this client have to know all these things? What we'll do actually, we will have a stream like this. We have another game state stream. And we create a subscription for that. So basically what we'll have is we will have a, let's just, I wonder, let me think. So basically what we want to do is I want to say request to play, and then I'm basically also going to subscribe to the, so I'm going to say that, let's forget about this for now. So the updates client, it's client dot, I want to say subscribe to game states, and I'm going to give it the plain client. And then I assign that to something, and that should give me back a stream, right? A response stream, right? Okay, so that's nice. What I can actually do is I can return this from here. To request to play, and we get the update stream, right? And then the only other thing that's missing is we need to be able to say something like submit player input. Or we call it inputs because there's numerous ones. And so basically, we need to set up the client sync. So basically here's the inputs. Hold on, this is confusing. Playing client event. Oh, because we make it an event. That's fine. So input event basically. And so that we make that a new stream. It doesn't have to be broadcasting. We make that a stream controller. Don't need this like that. So we just say it's a stream controller of playing client event. All right. And we need a dispose method. Why did this work in the other? Oh, because we assign it in here, so it knows it can never be null. Okay, fine. So this is a stream controller, and so when we submit player inputs, we basically just say input events dot add, and we need a player and client event, and that one, yeah, we need to basically say dot player inputs. So we say basic player inputs. Okay, so we got that. So that one will be actually what we'll use in the UI to basically say, okay, request to play, then you get your stream, right? And then we'll basically update the model with the stream every time, and then we basically submit player inputs whenever we need to, whenever the user presses a key. And so what we can say is the events, the events stream is this. And let's make a, so we can add, so basically client or playing client would be this. All right, so we got our stream back, and then we can also say event stream dot listen, and so we'll say that whenever we get game state event, all right, and we just basically print that out. Okay. And obviously that would be a sub that we'd have to unsub and basically so basically now here we have another thing. So when we submit player inputs, so add, but the thing is that we haven't hooked up the server yet with the player input. So what we want to do is right, we go back to the proto and we look at what we have here. So we have playing client sync. So updates client dot playing client sync, and we give it the stream that we're going to push our updates into. We have to wait this because it returns a future, and basically it's going to be the stream control input events dot stream. Okay, so basically now we're getting back we're getting the playing client. Now when we know the playing client, right, we basically hook the server up with the client events that we are going to generate every time the client inputs something, and we return the game states that are for the game that the client is in. And that's why we have to pass in the playing client, because that's how the server knows which game we're in. And it will most likely send the same game states to all the clients. There might be something where it says you are dead or something, but we can actually just figure this out on the client side, right? If you have all the players sent to us and we know what our ID is, we can then figure that out. Now we're actually doing a lot better than we were just a few minutes ago, and you can see that that actually we have less errors now as well here. So I guess we don't need this anymore. Okay. So now basically I should be able to launch the server if all goes good, and then a client, and then the client should give us output. Let's see. So we got this server. Okay, that went well, and now let's launch the client. Okay, good. We got that. Now we didn't get. So let's look at the client. We're listening to this, but we never get any event, right? But when we do request to play, we return this. Okay. But, oh, we never started the game loop on the server, right? I think that's probably the problem. So what we'll actually do, we'll see this. It shouldn't even start anyways, because actually needs a service again. So basically when we get a new client, right? Then what we should do is game.start. And as we can see, the game will not, well, maybe we should also call that try starters to be clear. It is going to, wow, okay, that's a lot. Okay. Let's make that at least an expression body. We could probably also make this a getter. It's just forwarding to the game loop. And that one will basically only start if there are enough players. And enough players at this point is if we have at a minimum 2 players, right? And let's just make sure that we're actually adding players too. So when we do the getting aim state, we should be adding players to this. So let's say when we play, oh, here we have a problem, right? So basically we have to look at this. If games is empty or games from the game.id, would that work? Or dot contains key game.id. If it doesn't, and basically we can then remove this because it will be true when it's empty. When it doesn't, then we'll basically create it. No, hold on. Oh, hold on a second here. Hold on. If games is empty, then we create the current game ID. Oh, this is confusing. It only supports one game right now. Somehow. We'll figure that out later, I guess. So basically we're saying the current game ID is this. We create this game, and then everything, always we use the current game ID. Now let's see, and this is probably because we still simplified things. Yeah, so basically the current game ID, are we ever setting this? Yeah, so basically what we're doing is, like, if the games are empty, then we are figuring out what the game ID is. And otherwise we'll just return this one game that we're currently dealing with. Then we add the playing client, we try start, and we return. Okay, so this should be better now. Let's try this again. So we actually need more than one, we can't do the client yet. We need more than one server. So actually let's go over here, because we can basically create us a bunch of windows, and we just say dart lib server, no, I think gRPC server. So we have a server. Now we say dart lib gRPC client. So we have one client. The client won't get anything yet because there are not enough players. Lib gRPC client. All right, now we should actually start getting game states, and we are not, because the code is not doing what it's supposed to do yet. So now if we do this, all the clients crash, which is okay. So what we'll do is we'll walk through in the server what happens when we actually play to make sure that everything works correctly. And that basically and also we look here, like when we ask for the game ID, that's actually the one that we have. But we didn't hit this assert, so that's good. And let's just make double sure that on the client we are actually also doing we do initial request to play, and actually when we do that, we are asking subscribe game state. So it should actually work. So let's run the server in debug mode. And then for now, we'll just launch one client over here as well. All right, so let's see. So we get a game, and the ID is this, and that's most likely also the current game ID, yes. So then we create a playing client, which should now have the same ID. Yes, has a game ID of that. And then we try to start the game and return the playing client. So that should be fine. Now the client says, okay, give me the events, please. So we get the game. The game ID is what it was before, yes. So the game was not null. And then basically saying game, map, packet, blah. So we give it a game states. So that's all fine. Now what I want to see is if when we try to start it again, when we hit here, actually I want to see what happens then. So let's continue. And now if we connect another client, I wish I could just somehow duplicate this thing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go into configurations and I'm going to duplicate this guy. I'm going to say client 2. Right, I'm going to call this guy client 1. So we can have multiple clients running. I hope that works. So let's see. Client 1. Let's see client 2. Now we can run another client. Okay, cool. So okay, now we got let's see, we should get the same game, first of all. So it looks like that. Got a new client ID. Game ID is the same. We're sending this back. Fine. Now, enough players. Do we have, how many players do we have? It's true. We schedule a tick. So that means we start scheduling a tick. So basically, we should move to the next. Okay, so something didn't go right there. So let's continue and we'll do this again. So I think what's happening, the game loop is not starting. So let's just make another one. Client 3. So we can stay in the ID here for debugging. Otherwise, we'll probably just go to the terminal. So we have client 3. So we get the game. I mean, we got that figured out. That seems to work. So now, let's see where the players are. The game state. We need to look at our current game state. Do we have players? Oh, that's the problem. We have no players. Okay. But didn't we have an add player? Well, we never added, right? That's probably the problem. So we can stop all of this. I think we found the problem. So when we start the game on the game service, we add clients, but we don't add. So actually what we need to do is we need to make this an add function. So this is on the game, right? So let's go to the game. So instead of accessing these clients directly, we need to basically make this like that. All right, and then basically want to say that there's a getter for this. If we still want to obtain that information, we can. So let's put that below the constructor. Okay, and now what I'm going to say is I'm going to say void add client playing client. And so here we'll add this dot. So there's the clients, right? Dot add find, but also we'll create a new player model. And okay, so we need to import this. Does it need anything? It wants an ID. Okay, so ID is the playing client ID. Okay, what's the problem here? Client ID. It wants a type position. So basically, the server obviously needs to figure out what the type position would be. So for now, we say type position. And so what we'll do is we'll look at the player, how many players we have, and then we'll decide on what type position we want them to be in. Right now we give them the same one. And so we need to, obviously we need to know what the tile map is and all these things, but for now we give it 1, 2, 3.0, 1.0. Or let's just say they are perfectly in the middle as we always want them to be. I mean, there's a lot of work here still to be done, but we'll get there next episodes. Okay, now the next thing is the angle is, for now we say 0.0. They always start at 0. The velocity is offset dot 0 or empty. Well, we need to import offset first, and we need to get this from our own engine, so we don't pull in Flutter here. So 0, and then I think applied thrust is false for now, obviously, right? Okay, so that's good. We got the player model, and let's just name it player for now. And so here we put a to do derive tile position from tile map and index of player. So you know, the which is it, like the first one, the second one, whatever, right? So now we can say so now we're pretty much good. So now we just need to our game. Huh, interesting. So we have the game state here, which is now a game loop, which is secret. So it hasn't started yet. Actually, what I want to do, I want to make a specific function for that to be really clear about what we're doing, right? Because this is tricky. We're adding something to a game loop, weird. But we'll just make a function here, add player. So what it will do is it will say the current game state dot players of player dot ID. We need to import this guy. Is player, right? And then basically we need to obviously well, if you're not ticking yet, we're fine. So like once we tick, we get that updated. So that's right now we don't need to actually deliver that updated game state. Okay, so we got the current game state updated. So now we can say game loop dot add player right. I mean, it would be like more sensible to say game state, but the game loop kind of encapsulates it, so it makes sense to also do it this way. So now we're adding the player. So now let's see, actually, we might be fine. So let's launch the server here. And it's listening. We launch a client. We should not get any updates yet. And then we launch another client. And now we should start getting updates. See, we don't get any updates. They're both having the same player, same game ID, so that's good. Let's launch another client. Okay. Let's stop that one, and what I'll do is I'll actually we should have. Oh, here's a problem. Okay, that's fine. Yeah. So let's just kill the clients. Let's just kill everything, and we need to basically pull this. We need to pull our error handlers into the server first. Otherwise, we'll just keep crashing like this. So when the server is basically returning this thing, oh sorry, when it's actually listening to client events, right? Where we do it. So here, we need to actually add to the listen function. We need to add some error handlers. Let's do it this way. I want to add type annotation, so we have that. Okay. So this should be fine. So basically now we have an error handler here. We don't crash anymore when this happens. And we basically, that's what we worked out. As you remember, like I did some episodes almost by myself a little bit. Well, I streamed it, but then it was not fun to. It wasn't fun to really look at, so I decided to not make it an episode. But that's where I worked these out. Server. All right, so let's get a little bit of order here. So we got this server, and then we want client 1 as well. So we just make another one, client 1. Move that up here. So we got client 1, 2, 3. Make another one, 4. So we can have 4 clients. Obviously, it's much easier to do this on the terminal. But if we want to store, this in, okay, whatever, just like delete this one. If you want to store this in the if you kind of want to look at things here in the IDE, it makes more sense. So we store these here. So let's do this again. We launch the server, except we launch it in debug mode. And then we will go ahead and launch one client over here. And so the current players should basically be still size is nothing. Why? We already added. Hold on. Oh yes, we didn't call this game.add player, I guess. What do we call it? Add client. Okay, so that's what you had to do. That's the thing. Like we shouldn't be able to. You know what? I'm just going to remove this because we don't need it. This is what basically confused us because we were still using this property, even though it probably should have been private to begin with. So let's try this again. So, and at this point, I'm not even going to debug. I'm just going to go over here and I'm going to launch a bunch of clients real quick. And now we should start getting updates. Yes. Okay, cool. All right, so now we're getting updates, and you can see that the angle is increasing, and both of them are getting updates. That was so we can launch another one here, lib. So you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to before I do that, I'm going to actually limit a little bit what we are printing, so we can kind of see. And you see now I disconnected the clients. The server didn't crash because we had that error handling code in there now. So we are doing good. What I forgot is I still need to tag this episode 28 start, or is it 29 already? I think it's 29, right? Yep. So episode 29 start, and then we'll check it in, and then we're good, and we'll put it as episode 29. But I'm really happy that by the end of this episode, actually now we got something that does work. So we need to just go to the client, and in here we'll just take the event. So what we'll do is final info equals. So gamestate.players.map. So we just want to pull out some stuff. So let's call those infos. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take x dot. We'll take the angle and we take the ID, right? So we say return. So we are in game x dot game. It doesn't have the game, right? It has an ID though. The player itself doesn't have to know. It's just a playing client has to know that. So x dot ID, and then we'll just show the angle. Angle. So the output is a little shorter. All right. So this should look much nicer now and much easier to read. So let's start our server again. And now we launch its client here. Sorry, not the client. We launch a client, server, the client. All right. Nothing happening yet because we don't have enough clients. Launch another one here. And now this should start printing over there. Yep. There's another one over here. And we should be fine now where we have a bunch of clients going on. And probably what we should do, we should probably restart this. It looks like we don't need to have the /n here. And also we want to print, every time we have a new update, we want to print like something so we know this. So we can kind of separate each data dump, right? Each event basically from the other one. So server's still listening. So this should, it probably already has clients, right? So yeah, these clients, they still exist. Obviously, if we do implement this for real, we need to still disconnect the clients. But you can see now that it's printing the different values of these clients to all the other clients, and it works pretty nicely. It's ticking at 2000. Well, actually, that seems to be faster. So let's see the game loop. Oh, okay. So basically, we have to say that, yeah. So now we have multiple game loops going on. right? If it's already started, then we are running. And then we're going to say that okay. So now if I kill the server, all the clients will just be very unhappy, but we'll live with that. So they all just get an error. Obviously, all this stuff we need to still handle. So actually, I'm going to start the server over here. And then I'm going to start a client over here, and client over here. And now we should actually get updates every 2 seconds. 1, 2, okay. Yeah, so that's good. So, and now obviously since they all started at the same time, they have the same angle, but if I wait a little bit and then I start another client, now the old one will still be there, we'll have to clean that up. But basically now we can see that this one started at 100, the other one's already way ahead, and we're good. I think this is good. Obviously, like I think the event we're getting here on the client is still packed. So we get the players here, they're still packed, I think. Oh, sorry. So basically the current, where was that client? So the game state event, right? It still has a packed game state on it. So this game state here is here, and it's a packed game state, which means that it has still packed player model. So actually what we need to do is we need to actually unpack it. Yeah, I thought. Not? Oh, because we need to import it? Yes. So now we get the player, and so now the angle should actually be more realistic. So if let's just kill the server and kill everything, and let's start this one more time before we sign off for today. But now we should have an angle actually showing as, yes. Oh. Okay, so it looks like we need to join with, I guess the /n was introduced by some weird other thing, so yeah, we don't want them all in one line. So let's do this again one last time, just because I'm so happy that this is now working. I kind of want to play with it. One more time, showing the clients are working. We wait with this one. We wait a little bit. So we got the first one. These ones have angle 0.2 at this point, 0.02, 3 now, and then this guy still has at 1. So we can clearly see now all the clients would basically know how the right is it pointing this way or this way. So now they could basically, if they see all these other players, they could now update they could render the player this way, and so this is kind of like, you know, the first steps. I think those are the hardest. We got this kind of all hooked up. Hooking this up is usually the hardest. And then in the next episode, we're going to obviously use more of the game state that we get sent. And all we're going to do is we're basically going to try to render the game state. There are a lot of other things we have to still to do. We still have to figure out how to basically, the server now has to create the tile map and everything. It has to basically create the initial game state to send that back to the client. And that initial game state will basically have some things in there that will not change at all. So the game model will then be composed of those things that it sent with the very first response, and then basically every time some new game state comes in, it will get updated. So all these things we'll figure out in the next episode. Thank you for joining, and I'll see you tomorrow. We'll continue at the same time, 9 p.m. Eastern, which is 7 p.m. my time. So see you there. Thank you very much for joining.